Cognitive dissonance cannot last forever. If you say it's warm outside, and I say there's 3 feet of snow and it's still snowing outside, at some point we're going to have to resolve these two contradictory points of view. Whether that's today, next week, next month, next year, a million years from now, we are going to figure out how it is either warm out or cold out. This is the kind of thing we're seeing playing out right now on the pages and on the airwaves of every major media outlet in the country every day. And we are, of course, talking about how they rub our face in black identity politics relentlessly. But at some point, somebody's going to figure out, hey, is race a thing? Is race important? Because right now the answer is, yeah, it is sometimes, but other times it's not. And really the answer is, it's important when it fits our little narrative of black victimization, but it's not important when it comes to black criminality wildly out of proportion, where black people are not the victims, they're actually the predators. Had a good example of this just the other day on the pages of the San Francisco Chronicle, the major daily paper of San Francisco. It started off innocently enough with 5 nice-looking movie stars. They gathered for a round-table discussion. They stuck around for a little photo shoot. Why don't we listen to their little discussion just to see what touched off this firestorm of racial identity politics?
I just thought perhaps this woman is using her experience to have 15 minutes. And then I met her and I realized that I had been suckered into this image that the media had presented me of her. So I met Molly and I hung out with her and did a lot of research for what that was. I saw the women that were in the room and they were wearing the Hervé Leger dresses. So I called Aaron Sorkin up and I was like, I have to wear Hervé Leger dresses. He said, I have no idea what that is, but yes. Sounds great. I had pictures also of the Kardashians all over my trailer because for me it was so much about what society tells women they need to be valuable. So I would show up on set with this long black hair and my spray tan and my short dresses with the highest heels and my cleavage out. And I could feel the power that I would receive on set. I could feel this immediately like, oh, now people are paying attention to me. And at the same time, I felt smaller because I couldn't do things like I couldn't lean over and sit in a way that was comfortable. And it really gave me a lot of compassion for women in our society. In order for someone to listen to what they have to say, they have to smile enough. They have to maybe not wear too many pantsuits. They have to, all these things that the film explores.
So, did you catch it? Did you see anything nasty in there? Did you see anybody saying we should put all black people back in slavery? No, what happened was a bunch of black actresses got together and they started a firestorm on Twitter by saying, hey, where are the women of color, the woks? Where are the woks? Then they went on to give lots and lots and lots of explanations, repeat lots and lots of long academic explanations about how long is this going to go on? Why are you such a part of it? And the woman, Jessica Chastain, she was the one, the redhead we just saw. She came out and of course said, oh no, my God, I can't believe I did that. It was unbelievably bad. Black women should have starring roles. No, black people should have starring roles in every movie ever made in the history of movies and in the future as well. I got a kick out of her interview. She's sitting up there. Did you notice how she was dressed? She was dressed very prim and proper, not a lot of skin showing. All the rest of the actresses, they had lots of short skirts, lots of cleavage. She's sitting up there bitching about how the only way women can be heard was wearing clothes like that. All she had to do was, when she was kind of not liking that, all she had to do was like look on the couch around her and go, yeah, just the way those chicks are dressed. That's not good. There's another little bit of cognitive dissonance. So anyway, they went through it lasted a day or so. Everybody was going, pulling their hair out, going, "Oh my God, I can't believe we put 5 white people on the cover of a magazine." But to me, where this got really interesting was when the San Francisco Chronicle, on the very same day, on the webpage, it was just one story above, they had a story about BART. About how 12 teenagers, parentheses, black people, did another rampage through BART. And of course, all the news coverage of it never mentioned race once. They never connected the dots once, because race apparently is not a thing when black people keep brutalizing, robbing, threatening, assaulting people on the Bay Area rapid transit system. The disturbing trend. Good Lord, they made a movie about white people killing black people on BART called Fruitvale Station. Remember that movie? But that's not even close to being the truth. The truth is, when you ride on BART, especially when you ride through some of those East Bay neighborhoods of Oakland and Richmond and Berkeley and other places like that, you are the target. You are a target of black criminality. Black criminality to the point where it's so widespread that the officials at BART won't even release the cameras. There's, a million cameras on BART, right? They won't release them. Tell you what, let's get the flavor of some of the more recent episodes, what we're talking about. And then we're going to do something we don't normally do here. Well, we do this here. What we do is report what people say and do. We try not to report what people are thinking, because apparently I'm the only one on the whole planet who is not able to read minds. And that part of this we've run before, but it's worth running again, not just for new people here, but also just to remind all of us how crazy, how insane this whole black identity politics has gotten, and how dangerous it has become.
There's been another BART passenger robbed by a group of teenagers, and this is the latest in a series of these types of crimes involving the transit system.
Yeah, disturbing indeed. However, as KRON 4's Zeke Benoon reports tonight, in this recent case, the teenage suspects did one thing differently from those other robberies.
You are riding BART, arrive at your stop safely, exit the train station. However, you're being followed by 4 teenagers intending to rob you.
Okay, wow, that's really scary.
It happened last Friday just before 10 p.m. near Springer Gate on the UC Berkeley campus. That is where UC Berkeley police say the 26-year-old male BART passenger was beaten, kicked, and robbed by 4 teenagers. BART recently installed 2,000 video cameras in all of its 669 cars. And BART officials say last week some of those new cameras played a key role in identifying several teenage suspects allegedly involved in a robbery at an Oakland station.
But we are pleased that we have these new tools, these new cameras that are going to be a boon to investigators in the Berkeley Police Department in finding out possibly where these teens came from, where they went.
This is the transit agency's 4th recent incident involving teenagers allegedly robbing a passenger. But it is the first time that the robbers waited until the victim was not in the view of the new cameras and off BART property.
We don't track what happens to passengers after they're out of the BART system.
Attack on BART, continuing a disturbing trend, a group of young people targeting a passenger in a mob attack. NBC Bay Area's Sergio Quintana is live in El Cerrito with more. Sergio, this time they got a cell phone?
Seems they got a cell phone. This attack happened last night around 7:30 or so. It was on a Richmond-bound train, and it happened just before the train arrived here at the El Cerrito del Norte station. According to BART police, it was a group of about 10 to 12 teenagers. It's not clear how or why they swooped in on the passenger, but several in the group punched him, and someone was able to pry away his phone. When the train stopped at the El Cerrito del Norte station, the group of teens tried to sprint away. BART police were quickly alerted of the attack and robbery. And there happens to be a police substation here at El Cerrito del Norte, so officers were able to catch several teens. One BART rider I talked with told me he's always very careful when he rides a train. He offered well wishes for the rider who was attacked last night.
It's sad that it had to happen at this point in time in people's lives. It's supposed to be a joyful moment, and it's just sad that it had to happen like that. Hopefully this guy's okay.
Unfortunately for that victim who was attacked, he was not able to identify the teen who pried away his cell phone, and police were also not able to find his phone on any of the teens they did apprehend. This year, there have been several incidents where swarms of teenagers attack passengers. In one high-profile case this summer, the mayor of Richmond witnessed a group punch and kick a passenger at the Richmond station. Now, according to a BART spokesperson, in this case it happened last night. BART police officers are pulling the video that is on the security cameras aboard the train. They're going to be using that video as part of their ongoing investigation.
Okay, here comes the single most unforgettable two pieces of video we've run on this channel, probably ever. It's the Holy Grail. It started off innocently enough again. It was a couple of months after 60 black people rampaged through a BART train in the East Bay, beat the hell out of a bunch of people on video, except they didn't release the video. I learned about it because when you think about how many people know something like that, I learned about it from people who were there. I learned about, I had to make sure it wasn't 60 Amish people rampaging through a BART train. So the numbers on this thing, they really expand geometrically in a big hurry, right? So there are people who do watch the videos. There are people who, the cops, the witnesses friends. That's a circle that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. All of a sudden, within a couple of days, thousands and thousands of people know what happened on the BART train. The only people who do not know are the people who run the Chronicle, the people who run the major network affiliates in the Bay Area. Well, it's either that or they're lying their asses off about it. So let's take a look at this video and let's see why they will not release, why they don't release the video, why they don't talk about the race of all the people who are responsible for violent crime on BART.
Now, as you go about riding BART and speaking with BART riders who want to tell you their concerns, what are they saying about safety on BART these days?
I think people are genuinely concerned. They are fearful about the stories that have come out about the recent attacks, the assaults, the thefts. They're concerned.
Yeah, we've got the April 22nd assault. That was the 40 to 60 teenagers. We've got the June 28th, 4 teenagers. And then June 30th, 10 to 13 yes. Teenagers, all iPhone, cell phone robberies. And you're saying people are nervous. Are they happy or are they satisfied with the kind of information that BART is disclosing about these actions?
I've received a number of requests and comments from riders to ask me to press for the release of the video of these incidents, and the reason for that is they want to see for themselves what's going on the trains, and they want to learn from that and determine how they can protect themselves a little better and be less vulnerable to those types of crimes on the trains.
Now, we've heard that BART has said that it's because there are minors involved, and that's why they're not able to release the videos. Is that your understanding?
Right. Originally, the April attack, the BART did say that because they were minors involved, and involved in addition to that, the investigation, when something is under investigation, they are not required to release the video. Mm-hmm. But I've since learned that in that April attack, there was a 19-year-old who was arrested and detained who is not a minor. And so there would be reason for at least the video of that person to be released.
Yeah, and you would think maybe they could blur the faces of other folks. So if it's not because they're minors, because we know at least one of them isn't, what is it?
Well, so I asked that question recently, asked why can't we release these videos? And the answer was initially that, well, normally cities don't release videos of these types of crimes. And I said, yes, but this is BART. People are sort of trapped in this train for a while,
Right.
and they have a right to see what could potentially happen. And the next answer was that to release these videos would create a high level of racially insensitive commentary toward the district. And in addition, it would create a racial bias in the riders against minorities on the trains.
So they were saying that, and I assume the implication is that these crimes, or at least some of them, have been conducted by minorities, and so they don't want to release the footage because then that would somehow cause
a racial bias.
A racial bias?
Right.
Did they say... So if it were a video showing white teenagers robbing someone, we would have the video by now? Is that the implication?
That is not a question I asked, but that might be a good question.
Much to her credit, this board member released a back and forth email and memo she had with this woman who's the head of PR and one of the VPs of the BART system. So they were saying, hey, what's up with the crime? And, how do we report it? And when are we going to release the videos? So the memo was blah, 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 blah. Furthermore, disproportionate elevations of crimes on transit interfaces with local media in such a way to unfairly affect and characterize riders of color, leading to sweeping generalizations in media reports and a high level of racially insensitive comment directed toward the district through our social media channels, email, and call centers. The BART Police Department has a hard copy, blah, blah, blah. So, it's like, hey, we'll give them, they want to track this crap down. They can have it. We're not going to give it to them because that would not be very sensitive. So the board member, Deborah Allen, says to Carrie Hamill, could you explain what this part of your memo means? Quote, furthermore, disproportionate elevation of crimes on transit interfaces with local media unfairly affect and characterizes riders of color. I don't understand what the role of the color of one's skin plays in this issue. Can you explain? This was like the biggest softball this Carrie Hamill chick ever received in her life. The social media reaction to the original Coliseum incident in April, that's where the 60 black people rampaged through the train, was startling in the level of racial profiling that it prompted. The general manager got a call about the incident on her voicemail that used racist and incendiary language that made my mouth drop. This chick lives in Oakland, by the way. She was a candidate for city council in Oakland. Anyway, back to her memo. Many posts use patently offensive language that often involves racial slurs. Parentheses. No news articles ever reference the race of the offenders, yet some members of the public leapt to their own conclusions, on parentheses. Let's talk about that for a minute, because so there's 60 people. We know there's 60 black people who know who did it. We know there was people on the train who know who did it. We know there were lots of witnesses that saw people going on and off the train. They know who did it. So that's already like 100 people. Then we know all the people in BART. They know who did it. The cops know who did it. It wasn't very hard to find out. I had 2 people send me emails saying, yeah, I'm a cop, or I was a passenger. I saw this happen. So to say that people are leaping to conclusions by correctly identifying black people as the culprits, nobody was guessing. People were saying what happened. Back to the memo. Some telephone calls and posts even involved vague threats. The media has proven its tendency to highlight material in the most inflammatory way possible. As a former journalist, I can cite for you a number of bias studies that have pointed out media bias and the damaging consequences of it. The firestorm of criticism in the wake of the Oscar Grant killing centered around a belief that BART police were racially biased. If we were to regularly feed the news media videos of crimes on our system that involve minority suspects, particularly when they are minors, We would certainly face questions as to why we were sensationalizing relatively minor crimes and perpetuating false stereotypes in the process. Here's my comment. It's like, if crime happens to somebody else, it's minor. Happens to me, it's major. I have worked in or with the media since the 1980s. My view is that the media's real interest in the videos of youth phone snatching incidents notice how she marginalizes it, isn't the desire for transparency, but the pursuit of ratings. They know that videos of these events will drive clicks to their websites and viewers to their programs because people are motivated by fear. People can be fully informed about crimes that occur on our system without being shown images that will inflame some members of the public and paint the transit agency in a poor and ultimately misleading light. That's the most astonishing confession. That's the most astonishing admission of denial, deceit, delusion. That's the most astonishing example of how reporters and public officials ignore, deny, condone, excuse, encourage, and even lie about the level and the quantity and the quality of black violence all throughout the country. Exhibit A. Carrie Hamill, thank you. You know, BART is not new to this game of hide and seek when it comes to the people who are terrorizing their passengers. It was a couple years ago, we did 2 videos on this. Somebody at BART said, hey, we have a big problem on BART. We have some unruly people on our trains, and we got to do something about it. Why don't we use that newfangled technology? We'll give people an app. And when they see something bad, we'll tell them to say something. See something, say something, right? So that's what people on BART did. And they overwhelmed the system with comments, complaints, and observations about what was happening on the trains. And it turned out 70 to 80% of all the comments on the train reporting criminal behavior, where they reported the race, 80% of the complaints were about black people. So in San Francisco, that only means one of 2 things. One, black people are going crazy on the BART up there and just targeting white people and Asian people and just having a whole hell of a lot of fun terrorizing them. That's the Occam's razor. That's the simplest explanation. The other explanation is that people who ride BART are just a bunch of racists and are imagining this. They're cherry picking this. They're living in a bubble. They're doing the confirmation bias, like our president told Prince Harry the other day in his first interview since leaving the Oval Office. So, oh yeah, people on the internet, they've got all these confirmation biases. Don't you know that? They're living in a bubble. We live in a bubble. And so really, there are lots of white people doing this too on the BART trains, except they just get away with it. Nobody's reporting them because all white people belong to some secret fraternity where we promise not to turn in fellow white people when they're caught committing crimes. And the fraternity is so strong, it even extends to the people who run the video cameras. Do you believe they will not release the videos of this crime? I mean, here's the plain fact. If they wanted to catch the criminals, they'd release the video. That's a plain fact. The fact they're not releasing the videos tells us they have something else in mind, something else on their agenda. That is, they are people who believe that catching black people while they are committing crime is criminalizing black people. Catching black people, putting them in jail for beating the hell out of white people, that somehow causes crime. I wouldn't be saying this, and I wouldn't expect you to believe it unless I showed you that video right there. Would you believe it if I didn't show you that video? The video of the vice president and the board member going back and forth about how we have to not let people know who's really responsible for all this crime and violence because they might call up the general manager and leave a real nasty voicemail again. We can't have that, can we? So meanwhile, every day, reporters who report on this kind of stuff, they're just walking on eggshells, they're walking on the razor's edge, whatever metaphor you want to use. They're all trying to figure out, well, you know what, and when is race important? When white actresses get together and have a picture taken? Oh, it's very important then. But when dozens and dozens of black people on numerous occasions rampage through a public transit system, causing incredible amounts of violence, mayhem, that's not important. The central organizing feature of everybody involved in that crime, for committing that crime, is not important. That cognitive dissonance just cannot stand. It's going to be resolved. It's going to be resolved because people like you and I and lots of other people listening to this channel, they're going to resolve it. We're going to resolve it with the truth, demanding the truth. That's the easy way out. That's the quick way out. The long way out is this is going to just keep getting worse and worse and worse. The denial is going to keep growing more and more and more because the more crime and violence you have and the longer it goes on, that means the more denial, deceit, and delusion you have to heap on top of it. Denial, deceit, and delusion are not sustainable over a long period of time. Everybody finds out eventually about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and Rumpelstiltskin. Even if that does make the black kids angry.